Okay, something's happening. Okay. Oh, there it is. Sorry, I'm already live. It just won't go live in one spot, which is perfectly fine. Hello, good evening. This is Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy Vet Certified Doer, and the Laced Up Legislator for the House of Delegates, 93rd District. Hey, y'all. We're here, right? And if you're joining us already, then you're here to talk about childcare. No joke, right? Like, hey, so I'll be waving to y'all on Instagram. I see people like piling in. Hey, so if you're here to talk about childcare. So we're gonna get into it because we've got a little over an hour to have a conversation about affordability, availability, accessibility, quality of care, and then some of the workforce challenges. So we brought some of your neighbors in, like some of your neighbors, like for real neighbors, they're yours and mine in the community, here to talk a little bit about like just low key talk about childcare. So let's bring them in. Y'all ready? I see people already clapping. I'm gonna bring in who's already got a fan club. Sharon's fan club is already here. Sharon. So first up, we have Sharon, and I was gonna say manana, but it's manana. Girl, slap me with a wet noodle. Hey, Sharon.
Hi, everybody.
What you do with childcare? What do you care about childcare? What's going on with you?
Well, I spent my entire career working in early childhood education. I've worn many hats, from assistant teacher to director of school to floater. Anything you can think of in early childhood, I've worn that hat. And now my role is education consultant at Work Program Architects in Norfolk. Mm-hmm. And I look mostly at the design of a building and making sure, especially if it's an educational facility, making sure it meets the licensing standards under the Virginia Department of Education. And then,
so that red tape.
Making sure, but also from a functionality standpoint, can a child, if the building looks beautiful, can the child really function in that space? Can they have fun? Can they play with their friends on the same eye level? Can they look outside of a window and tell me what the weather is? Is the window set too high? Those are the little things. Even potty training. Is it a handicap size toilet or is it an adult size? All these things you have to think about. So I bring in all that knowledge from my experience in early childhood, and I make sure that the design for an educational facility meets the needs of the end user, the children, the families, the educators.
There we go. Welcome, Sharon. Greg.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, what you doing here, Greg? What you talking about?
So my name's Greg, right? Been active duty military now for just over 11 years. I'm originally from South Carolina. I'm a single dad to a 6-year-old son who turned 7 this year. He just finished kindergarten. So that's exciting. So we're excited about first grade this year, and I live in Chesapeake.
Okay. So you know. Listen, when you gotta trust your babies with other people, you spend more time with my kid than I do. You better be right.
No doubt, absolutely.
Thanks, Greg, for being here. And then we got Jane. Jane, what you doing? What you doing here?
Well, let me get myself unmuted first. I was having a problem there. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jane Glasgow, and I am with EVMS, which is now called Virginia Health Sciences at ODU. Big new name. If you're not familiar, the EVMS has merged. It's been a little crazy, but yes. And so I work on behalf of children and families across the region, from the Eastern Shore, Southampton Roads, Western Tidewater, all things early childhood. The name of our initiative is -9 to 5, and it focuses on the early childhood years from the -9, from the time somebody finds out they're pregnant until the time the child goes to school. And so, like Sharon, I've had a lot of professional experiences, a lot of personal experiences. I started out as a kindergarten and first grade teacher in Chesapeake. Greg, I live in Chesapeake too. And realized it mattered way more about what I did with children before they ever got to kindergarten than what I did with them in kindergarten. And so really focused on those early childhood years. I can also say my children are much older, old enough to have kids of their own. But, I ended up quitting work at one point because the options for childcare were so limited, and I just couldn't do it. But that put me behind in my career. It changed a lot of things. And so, really understand the the challenges that parents face with, leaving their child with somebody, and am I able to go to work? We want Greg doing his best work when he's at work and not worried about where his son is and who's keeping his son. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Jackie.
Oh, thank you for being here. I was about to say, let me tell you something. When I first saw minus 9 to 5, I had no idea what the minus 9 meant. I was like, minus 9 to 5. What was minusing?
Yeah, everybody thinks about Dolly Parton's song, working 9 to 5. I always like to say it's hard to get, but it's like that minus 9 to age.
Yes,
5.
that's the new. We're gonna have to symbol minus 9.
The minus 9 to age 5. Yeah. Once you figure it out, it's like it makes sense. Yeah,
it
getting
makes sense.
children
I just
ready
wanted
for
to
life.
say that.
Yeah.
For anybody that was like me trying to figure it out, I just had to say it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have Ebony and Sandra. And am I saying it's Sandra or Sandra? Make sure I'm saying it right.
Yes, it's Miss Sandra.
It's Sandra. See, you say I said
I mean, in Spanish it's Sandra, but in English it's Sandra.
Okay. Get us right.
Yeah. So it's really up to you guys, however you want to say it. But she's here. So we together own a bilingual private preschool here in Virginia Beach. That is a bilingual immersion program. And so we've been doing that for 6 years. We're woman and family owned and operated. And we love what we do in this multicultural world.
I'm so glad you're here too. Cause let me tell you. So I never had the opportunity to have a preschool that that spoke to, that was bilingual. Mm-hmm. So coming up in San Diego when my son was little, I tried to teach him Spanish too. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that I had never taught my son how the word sit down in English. Mm-hmm. I was like, sit down. And then I was like, siéntate. And he sat down and I was like, I have not taught him this word.
Right. That's awesome though. That's what we strive for, whether you're a native English speaker or native Spanish speaker. It's a multicultural world, so you can just adapt wherever you are. So I love that. That's awesome.
Grateful for y'all putting that in, and also we have a very strong and growing Spanish speaking population that deserves quality care as well.
Yes, very much so. Especially with a lot of the voyages and a lot of the traveling that has to be done, whether they're a part of the military or they're just relocating or things of that nature. A lot of that definitely can go towards their development, and we want to nurture that. We want to amplify that, and we want to elevate that in the community. So we're excited to be partnered with people who support us so that we can give that quality care to them.
That's right. So in order to do this work, y'all, I can't do it by myself. And I feel like all of this work, all of the, how do I want to say, most of the work I do here is social work. It is. I'm just not kidding. Y'all be like, oh, you a politician. No, part-time, full-time social work. So it was really important for us to bring onto our team somebody that has a background in social work, but also can understand constituent services and keep this office connected to people like Sharon, Ebony, Sandra, and Jane, and Greg. So I have Jay Putnam. What you doing here, Jay?
I am connecting. I'm Jay Putnam. I'm District Director for Delegate Glass, and I am primary point of contact for constituent issues and concerns and the stuff. Many of which include childcare options and when there are none.
When there are none. Yeah, Jay, we've had some calls and things like that where it's like, how the heck do we get this person in somewhere when they can't? I don't got the money for it. What am I gonna do? And I've cried some nights. What we gonna do? How we gonna help these people? I can't watch people, kids, and do this at the same time. But I would if I could. So let's just dive right into it. I think the center, the nucleus here, Greg, what is it like out there trying to have care and work and stuff
It's definitely unique. I would say talking to most parents and we all kind of have the same, I think, conversation, and that's just accessibility. A lot of us, everyone thinks 9 to 5, but I think a lot of jobs are especially with commutes in this area. If you're from the Hampton Roads area, you know, commuting can be, definitely good one day, bad the next.
Thanks.
And so, for us, a lot of childcare comes accessible in the morning. I know a lot of that people start at 7 or 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And so we find ourselves in this predicament where um, do we have childcare early in the morning, right? And then if we do we want to have that, conversation and say, okay, do I really want to wake my 6-year-old up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so that way he can get to daycare at 5? That way I could be at work at 6. So, there's that balance of like, hey, what do we do? Do we ask our work, hey, can we have some leniency, right? Are we at the mercy of their leniency? So that way we don't have to wake a 6-year-old up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then on the other end, a lot of childcare, they close, 5:30 or 6 o'clock, which is good. That's typically later in the evening, right? So it's because it's a lot easier to stay open late or to stay at work later or leave work earlier than it is to be at work, at 5 o'clock in the morning. So that's kind of the unique situation that we find ourselves in, or that I find myself in more often than not.
Is that early morning? Like, who gonna take my kid?
Absolutely. Right? Because
Facts.
you start asking people, hey, can you wake up at 5 o'clock on your day off, to watch a 6-year-old and then take him to the school bus? And then I have to, be on my phone to make sure, hey, did everything make it? So you put a lot of trust in other people. That way they can help you succeed in what you're doing in life. So
I'm tell you this. So 313 baby girl 757. You can't see her comments because I have Instagram comments have separate. She said childcare hours come short when they working hours can go beyond 6 p.m.
hey, yeah, absolutely, right.
They do be short. But then
yeah, and I think that's what's so important for us to think about is, a lot of times we say, oh, well, we just need to build more childcare centers. Well, that's great for some people, but the military, my son's military too, and he's got to be there at the crack of dawn. And so, you need a variety of different types of childcare. There's not like one size that fits all for everybody. So family day homes, I know, Jackie, you were talking about, the military child day homes. When you were in the military and how that's so important. Like it's not one size fits all. And so a lot of times people are like, oh, well, if we do this, that's going to fix the problem. Well, there's not one answer that's going to fix the problem for everybody because everybody's needs. And I will say that I think one of the great things that Virginia is doing is that we're really focused on choice, parent choice. And not, some states just try to do a cookie cutter, one size fits all. We're going to do universal pre-K for everybody and send them to the public schools for that 3 and 4-year-old. But in Virginia, we've been really focused on choice and what parents need, which I think is so important. So, so a program is great, like Ebony and Sandra's program that has something really different to offer. A parent can select that rather than being forced to go to some program that maybe is not what they want for their child or their family.
Ooh, choice is huge. And Sharon Houston says single moms and single dads, because shout out to Greg being up here who work to 3 p.m. to 11 or 11 to 7. Yeah, them unorthodox hours sometimes, and having the shipyard here and having the hospital and the military and like all these spaces. And I think y'all both hit on it. It's like, I feel selfish sometimes. I did sometimes feel selfish being like, who's going to open up at 4:30? But like, because we forget about the provider. So Ebony, y'all like.
Yes, I was just about to kind of piggyback off of that. So I think that the thing that I've learned the most over the years about retention with employees and them coming in early and actually wanting to serve, because it's a service, you're serving these families. There really isn't any monetary value that could put a price on being there for Greg, So I think that as a owner and as a program director, I really focus on the lending hands and the programs that we can be a part of to help us and create that space to be successful for those parents. So it's just like a trickling effect. If I'm a part of this program that offers me an incentive that I can give my opener, my employee, that will motivate her to come in earlier or stay later or accommodate students that may come at a different time, I think that that's really important. That's up to me and my program. So I think when choosing a program, you kind of want to ask those questions too, like, are you guys getting involved? Are you a part of programs that will, kind of help you open up the doors earlier if you can, or whatever the case is. So I think that having the access to those things are just super important in order to set everyone up for success.
Ebony, that definitely ties into bringing in that sense of community, which, as you were talking, I was thinking, yes, sometimes it's great if a family has, like Greg, for instance, if there's a teacher who your child loves, and maybe that teacher wouldn't mind helping you out by coming to your house, picking the child up, bringing him to school. I've tried to work with families that way too when I was a director, to say, hey, are there any teachers who live in this part of Norfolk because such and such parent needs a little bit of help? But then it also comes back to the cost. How much is it going to cost to have, there are all these factors that you have to consider. So building that good sense of community, sometimes it's another parent's going to help you out, and then you can help that parent out next time. I saw a lot of that happening in my career, and I thought that was pretty impactful because I'm originally from Africa. So everyone, we don't really have boundaries on family, or, you might not be my blood family, but we're all kind of family. So I think, especially in this region, I think I'm seeing more and more of this sense of community where it's, let me help you out. I can see you might need a break here or there.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And also that's why I try to do the fundraisers. My mom's really good with that. She does a lot of amazing fundraisers with the parents. So one specific one that I can think of right now is having them come to do spaghetti dinners. So not only do they come and eat with one another and meet other parents similar in their situation, but that allows them, without kind of me being in the middle, for them to create, carpooling or the play dates, or, the whatever they may need from each other, if I can't provide that too. And also I do a lot of like research as far as like transportation services and things like that, so that the parents can get to and from. And a lot of advocates too that might come to the school and speak with them, just for their needs and stuff. I try to make the program like a family. Like when I enroll, I always say, welcome to the family, so that way they can also understand that they're not alone, because a lot of people and a lot of parents are a little bit scared to ask for help because they don't know if they're asking for too much, So I like to make sure they have enough, resources to choose from.
Yeah, I love that people are shouting out their centers. Like, please shout out your center in the chat. Like, I love it. Like, got it. Learning. Like, please shout out your space and place. And something that was just said here, I think this is a beautiful comment, is that even some families that have both parents that it's like are struggling. And I don't want to butcher your name, Miss Burrell, because I'm not about to do that. But you have a daughter who's a nurse, a son-in-law who's military, and they got a newborn baby and a third grader trying to figure it out. I was going to ask, because like I genuinely don't know. And I know, Sharon, you deal with like the red tape side of things. Is like, if you tell somebody, hey, like, pick up this provider can pick up a kid, is there any liability there? Like, do you have to have like special kind of insurance to be able, because I'm like,
yes, and it's gotten a little more complicated over the years. I want to say, when I'm 36 now, but in my younger days, late teens into my early 20s, it wasn't no one was asking you to sign a waiver form or to say, like, if something happens, am I liable, or is this person liable? Now it's a lot different. So you have to walk that thin line of, you're doing this on your own accord. This is not affiliated with this entity that I'm a part of or this organization. You have to be very clear with those parameters, which again, then you lose that sense of community. Well, you're telling me so-and-so is available, but then if something were to happen, like for instance, if I said, there's some teachers looking for some extra work, just something on the side that they can do. Well, if the teacher is driving the child and gets in a car accident, the teacher works for the school, but they're on the way to the school. Who's liable? Is it the parent's fault? Is it the teacher's fault? Is it the school's fault? So now there are waivers that you have to sign, or documentation saying that if you choose to, and some schools even have policies that say teachers cannot also watch children at the same school. I mean, it's tough. And I really feel for families like Ms. Burrell. it's tough. I don't have an easy answer to it. Sometimes you have to trust that people have good faith and they won't sue the school, but then that thing happens and then carry over the lawsuit. So it's Jane's nodding at me because she's had to deal with this too.
Oh yeah, the liability stuff is really hard, and you don't know when you're in a center. You've got licensing rules and regulations that are overseeing and making sure that we're following guidelines and that your child is in a safe place. But it's hard, and transporting children is a whole nother issue. So I know some parents that have done things like hired a morning person, and then the child would go right to school and then go to aftercare. But it is a challenge for many parents.
Yeah.
So I was just going to piggyback off of that. We do specifically at our center we partner with the Department of Transportation. So we actually went and advocated that our school was in the middle of 2 districts, so we could serve potentially 2, different communities. And so we actually have 2 scheduled stops here on our property. So a lot of parents, can use that the bus system still have them come here too. So that's also another way of thinking about it. Will the bus redirect, to go to my child's facility? And it takes a little bit of paperwork, but it's worth the emails. It's worth the paperwork. It's worth the add-a-zone form, and they'll do it. They'll make the accommodations if it's, in their way. So that's just kind of like another perspective or another idea you could utilize when you're enrolling.
Look, Marky Bell said, absolutely not. I ain't doing it. I ain't taking that risk. But to y'all's point, we get it, right? We get it because of the liability. And Ms. Sharon was like, look, this is why we need full public childcare service. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I just wonder, will we ever get to a day where we see childcare as an amenity, just as we see parks, just as we see libraries, just as we see
we do. Everyone on this call does, and everyone in the chats. But the problem is, how do you get the broader community to see that? I think Jack and I attended a roundtable discussion that Jane and her team led to get the business community involved in this too. I mean, it really does have to take more than just one demographic to say we care about this one thing. It has to take a lot of people to see, because if Greg, if you're coming into work, your boss needs to be understanding that, your kid's not feeling well, you might have to leave at lunchtime to go pick him up and then be with him for the rest of the day and maybe the rest of the week. Some jobs aren't that understanding. They say, figure it out. You have to be here, figure it out. And I hated making those calls to tell a parent, so-and-so threw up. You have 2 hours to pick them up, because the standards are very clear about the windows. Actually, it's probably less now, and then they have to be isolated from everyone else. I mean, there are all these things. And then the parents trying to plead with you, I'm in a meeting, I'm leading a presentation, I can't physically get there at this time. So I think if all the different entities and groups and demographics come together to figure this out and have an understanding and appreciation for early childhood education, I think it would make a world of a difference. But we're not there yet. Not everyone is seeing the need that is early childhood education.
Yeah,
Greg,
I would.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that for the first time that we've made some big strides. Delegate Glass and her colleagues up in Richmond have invested historic amounts of money in early childhood, and that's great. To the tune of $1.1 billion over the next biennium, and that's more state funding that has ever come in for early childhood. And don't want to sound ungrateful, because we're very grateful, but the bottom line is that's a great step in the right direction, but it's not gonna fix the problem, right? Because we have issues with workforce. I know, Ebony probably has openings right now for teachers. I when I was a director, it was rare not to be looking for somebody to hire, but right now, after COVID, we have the hardest time finding workforce because it's a low paying job. it's really tough. And so, we're putting more money into providing subsidies and making it more affordable, but the accessibility is still really challenging. And so I think too, we need to work with like our workforce council people and our business community, as Sharon said, and everybody to realize like this is what it's going to take to make a childcare system. And the bottom line is that Virginia doesn't work if childcare doesn't work.
That's
And
a fact.
so,
true.
Greg, they don't really, I know my dad was in the Navy too. They don't really care if you say, hey, I got a childcare issue. I bet your CO is like, don't care. Come on in.
That baby didn't come in that sea bag. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's why I was interested, Greg, because like the unique challenge, and I think it's really important to have you here too, in the sense of like the unique challenge of going from job to job every 3 to 4 years gives you a new system that has a different ideology about what it means to have children and be a part of the organization. Could you what's that like for you too?
Yeah, that's a good point, right? So I'm actually blessed right now, right? So I have a great boss, and I have a great chain of command, as you would, right? That really allows me and a bunch of others that are in the same situation. Because I have gotten those calls from the school nurse saying, hey, there's been an accident or something like that, and I had to run and leave. And I was just, one, blessed to be in port, right? And then two, just able to leave. And luckily I had cell phone service. So that, and two, it also changes with any kind of leadership, right? So one moment I may be blessed to have somebody who understands and has children and is willing to support. And then I may have one that say, hey, listen, we're here to work, and, you need to make it work on your own time, right? So that could change, month by month, just depending on, we all know, like any organization, some people come, some people go. So it just kind of depends on that too. So, and then just, like right now I'm at sea, but then, in a year or so, I'm going to be on shore, right? So then, the mindset there is, hey, we're here, we're taking a break. We still have to work. By no means are we not working, but people typically have a better understanding and saying, hey, listen, now's the opportunity to take the time and kind of focus on family and do that. So that kind of changes as well. But it also, like anything, it just depends on if you have a good good boss or a bad boss. We all have those. They come and go. So you just gotta hope and pray that you get a good one. So
Facts.
So yeah.
Facts. So this was a long one. And Jeannie, I know she's in Chesapeake, says military families have challenge of often not living near either side of the family to help, and may not even have friends because of moving. My husband was sent out of town on a moment's notice. All my salary would have went to childcare. Oh, with my twins, affordable childcare is so needed. It can derail a woman's career path. I know that was a lot of it played into why I Portia, like my own ailments, but having young children and being about to go back out to sea. And for those who don't know, it's like you, depending on your job in the military, you have a rotation of where you're attached to something that could leave and deploy, and you're not attached to some. So there's that up and down that happens there.
No doubt.
And so we hope it's no joke. So you all touched on something that I was like, I don't want to lose this, because I wore this. I'm not wearing a sweatshirt because I'm a teenager that don't know how to act and wear sweatshirts in the summer. Okay. That's not, if you got a teenager, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's 100 degrees outside and they're in a hoodie. I wore this specific sweatshirt because Norfolk Public Schools has at the Norfolk Technical Center over. If you've ever been at Target on Military Highway, there's this building that sits across that says Norfolk Technical Center, and they have the early childhood education program, to which my son was a part of. And it's like he's part-time at TCC. The classroom is attached to a child care facility that the kids spend a day in the classroom at TCC. The next day they go to their high school. The next day they're in the lab, which is the school, the preschool, actually working with the kids on the workforce side. It's like, if you look at my son and you deal with him, I never thought he'd be dealing with young people. But I'm also glad to see, I think there was another young man, more men getting into the field as well, and like really seeing this as a space where men can be a part. Ebony, I would love to hear your take, or like just like building the next iteration of caregivers. If she's still there, did we lose her? It's all right. Anybody can take it, or what? Doesn't matter. Greg, does it matter to you whether it's a man or woman, or you know?
Oh, absolutely not. No, my son so far, he's had mostly female teachers and female caregivers. But does it bother me? Absolutely not. Right. That's just, I don't know. In today's world, that's just not something I think about. I know some people do, though, right? I mean, some people feel a certain kind of way, and that's okay, right? To me, though, it's not necessarily right. I'm just looking for somebody who wants to be there, who cares to be there, and who wants to see, growth and have that in their life and have that connection. And that's kind of what I look for, right, in any kind of situation.
Yeah. Great.
Sorry, y'all. I'm back. I
Go
heard
ahead.
my name and then it went. I'm sorry. What was the question? It
No,
kinda
just
broke up and I
about
had to get out.
building the workforce. Like Norfolk Public Schools has this pipeline through the technical center to bring more people into it. And I just thought about the fact that my son was being a part as a man. And Greg already said, hey, I don't worry about whether it's a man or a woman, but like you and finding people that, because imagine the pay. We know we probably not paying enough.
Right, definitely. So I started this business actually when I was 19 years old. So that is like my, my baby, my root, right? And because I was a baby myself, so I had to grow with the business. Like as young mothers might tell me, we grew up together, me and my son or me and my daughter, depending on how young they had them, we grew up together. So it's the same thing with me in this business, right? And so I kind of just thought like, well, I feel blessed and grateful, that I'm able to build something so young. But what really helped me was my pre-education coming into this. So when I had the idea, I already had the education behind me, right? My mom was an educator for 25 years and she wanted to retire and give back her native tongue and her culture to the community, which is why we created a bilingual academy. And so I go to VOTEC every single year. We were just there for Career Day. I was just there. I've been going there ever since COVID. I've been invited. So I go to the technical center here in Virginia Beach and I speak to these young girls and these young guys. And I say, hey, when you leave out of here, you only have 1.5 years left to finish your associates, in early childhood education or to get a CDA, right? So when you do that, you could come out being a program director, you could come out being a lead teacher, you could come out even with that experience to want to open your own center. So I think that getting out in the community, finding young adults who are motivated to want to pursue this, and giving them the tools and the right resources, we could really create something beautiful because there's a lot of young
Did we
Can y'all
lose
hear
her?
me? I'm so sorry. Am
Okay.
I here? Okay. Sorry, people keep calling me. I thought it was on Do Not Disturb, but they do that double tap thing. I'm like, gosh, why did Apple make that? But so yeah, long story short, that's really the whole just overview of it. So I go every single year. I try to recruit the girls and the boys because they need hours for early childhood education as well. And why not, come to a facility where we're already doing everything in the standards. So not only are you learning it at school, but when you come here, I'm very thorough by the book type of person because I don't like to get my attention called. So, I'm very like, boom, boom, boom. They come in, they learn very, thoroughly. I've had the instructors come here. They like what I offer, and how I train and things of that nature. So I think it's just finding the motivated ones and really just showing them how this could be something very long term for the community, and also lucrative for themselves,
Yeah, and actually, Ebony, it's important to know that students can get free education at TCC in early childhood. There's something called the Pathfinder Scholarship, and there's also Department of Social Services scholarship dollars. So it's easy to get that free education, and you can go from the technical center to TCC. You can start at TCC. You can take 4 courses. You can get an associate's degree. There's lots of different options. But I think people don't know it. And I don't think that people realize how easy it is. The other thing that I think is a little bit of a challenge is that we often think of like childcare, that people don't see it as like a career path. But I mean, look at Ebony and Sandra. They own a center, right? They're business owners. And people can be directors, people can be educational consultants. There's so many different things that people can do. We need to really help people understand that it's not just, an assistant teacher or a teacher, that there's lots of different fields. And, I started out as a kindergarten teacher, and I've been a pre-K teacher. I've been a director. I've done all kinds of things. So there is clearly a career path in early childhood. We just have to help people understand that.
I wanted to touch on that comment about men being in the early childhood sphere.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who applied for a position at one of the schools I worked at, and his only rationale was he wants to be a father someday, and he wanted to have experience working with young children. Now he has 2 kids. Him and his wife have 2 kids. And his experience came from working at the school because he literally didn't know how to engage with children. Like when you don't have those opportunities, you don't really know what to do. He was an only child, all these things. But he didn't realize how dynamic, to Jane's point, early childhood education can be. I started off as a teacher assistant at ODU because I went through the early childhood program, whereby I'm in a classroom, learning all the knowledge I need to from a textbook. And then I go into a classroom and I'm working with children. So everything I'm reading in a textbook is coming to life because I'm having to do it. And I didn't really know what my career path was going to be. I just wanted to work with kids. I saw Marky say she works for pre-K North Public Schools. There's so many avenues now for what you can do with early childhood, and you don't just have to start at one and that's your end all. And if that is your end all, that's great too. But I also wore very many hats, and all those experiences, I think, enriched what I know now. I'm not a parent like Greg. I have a lot of admiration for what you do. But I think having male, all genders, it's the way the world is. You don't just have caregivers who look like us, who are women. They can look like Greg. They can look like really anyone. And I think we should embrace that more and more.
Yeah, you don't find a lot of, and I'm looking at Greg, like, I don't know if there are a lot of spaces where we're like, we need more men.
Yeah.
Betty Wade Coyle just made a great comment that the Norfolk Department of Social Services has a training and licensing piece for family day homes. And so, people who, especially like moms that want to stay home with their own children, they can start a family day home. They can get licensed, they can get education. The classes and the Pathfinder Scholarship, it's all education. And if you're opening your own business as a family day home, there's lots of opportunities there and resources that we can connect people with. And I think, that's another thing that people don't realize, they are business owners when you run your own family day home.
Yep. Yes. I would talk more about that, because I'm gonna toot my own horn and say, like, you're welcome, City of Norfolk. because for real, like that came from, and this is why I guess I'm going to say this, because I want to encourage anyone that's listening to this, that you're a problem solver. Your problem is someone's waiting on you to be a part of solving a problem. That program came about back during the pandemic. I submitted a proposal to the City of Norfolk called the Childcare Entrepreneurship Pilot Program, because I was having problems myself and knew that the only thing that saved me was a child development home, which was built by the military. And it's like, why don't we have that? Why don't we have community childcare? And submitted that proposal to the city manager. And at the time, it was Councilwoman Graves who helped us bring that, based off of something that's happening in another place, in Boston. And so I want to say, like, seeing that a part of, like, I know my impact there, and I love it, and I appreciate it, and I'm grateful for it. But I know that there's someone sitting here listening to this conversation too, that may hear something that could shift our conversation in a way where we're building something because you helped us solve. You brought to the table an idea that was doable, scalable, executable, and we need that. We need more of that from those of you who are experiencing, because like I said, this table was made because all of you have respective expertise, but we need more of us that are in the midst of it, talking with those who have the influence, the Ebony bringing it to the table, Dr. Jane from the health spectrum, really scaling EVMS or Virginia Health Services.
Health Sciences, Virginia Health Sciences at ODU. So
we need that. And then Sharon from the standpoint of like you're helping build and you're helping being a part of the contextual side. And we cannot undersell the relationship that we have with the military here, Greg, in your space being here about quality of life is super important. And installations are looking at care as a part of their quality of life. We need y'all in this conversation. I will say this online. We had, I'm gonna say this right. I hope it's El Duderhina, like it's Duderhina, said that their son used to attend a school run by Sharon. She's the best. Glad to see her on here.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I wonder who that is. Hi.
Yes. And then Life Coach Queen, hey, Jackie says a lot of vacant office can be used for many projects like building space. I don't know who that is. El Duderina, if you want to say your name or your kid's name, that would be perfect. Just trying to get some of the comments in here. She says bachelor degree, Marky Bell. I have bachelor's degree at ODU, minor, and I work in pre-care. Just pre-care. Just join us. Look. Take care of the kids.
Well, blue.
Jay, I wonder from you, you're the office, you're our office connections to the community. What are like things that you've heard that I know that you share them with me, but that you would share with this space of like how our office is connecting or understanding this issue?
Well, particularly in our office, we've had a lot of childcare, the complaints that we've been getting in and the requests for assistance for childcare are directly related to homelessness. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of folks reach out to us as a last resort crisis, reach out to say that they were homeless or they were about to be homeless. They couldn't find jobs. We had a woman who had 4 children, and she was about to be homeless literally the week that she reached out to us. And she couldn't even find a job because she has 4 children, and there was no child care avenue that she could find that was really going to work with her. We also had a single dad reach out, and he was worried about housing. He didn't know how to help himself. He wanted to get a job. He wanted to provide for his kid, but he also wanted to make sure that his kid was in good care, and the avenues that he was reaching out to just weren't working. So we're really getting affordability as a main issue for our office with childcare. When I was reaching out to the community in preparation for this roundtable, it wasn't a joke, but a lot of the responses I was getting was, duh, affordability. Like there's nothing else to talk about. And obviously there are, but the main thing on our constituents' minds is affordability.
Yeah. But like Ebony, when we're talking about that, like how do you make it work? Like you also have a bottom line too. Like you also have to
So I actually, so we've been doing some consulting for the SBDC for other centers that are opening up small programs or want help opening up programs. And we actually just had a client before this meeting, and I was just telling her that. So I was telling her that, you have to follow the standards and the structure that the department gives you, but you have to get creative as a business owner. You know what I'm saying? And so we got creative as far as creating other streams within our center that allow us, to tap into different projects and different fundraisers and things like that. And so, like I was just stating before, really tapping into the resources is what really keeps, the program going, the retention going. It's just being creative on how you're going to keep your staff. So, like for me, for instance, I celebrate their birthdays. They're allowed to have the lunch that I serve to the children. So It also keeps them like, wow, she really takes care of us. She worries about us. She feeds us here. She's worried about our social and emotional in order for us to care about the social and emotional of the children. I go very deep. I go very deep within the structure of the school to make sure that it all comes together. So I think that if maybe there was a class or something offered to us on the business side to kind of help us create more avenues and more streams within the school to keep the retention for quality equipment, quality staff, stuff like that. I think that would help a lot of centers, get creative on how they're going to keep everybody, right? Because you're right. I don't have $20 to pay for an assistant, per hour or whatever the case is. Or, the baseline is really, with all that I have involved, how much can I give, right? But I have to be involved. So that's kind of just the best advice that I can really give on how to keep stuff together.
Yeah, because when we talk about affordability, we sometimes forget that, like, you got to pay people, you got to live to all these things. But Greg, I want to hit it to you because, look, in all honesty, when I was active duty and I was stationed in California, I had to get on public aid in order to make, like, I had to go and get on WIC and get on all the stuff to be able to afford being pregnant and then having custody of my niece. Like, it was a thing. So, like, what's that like for you? Because people think sometimes you military, you rich, you got it.
I wish. No, so it's definitely always a concern, right? So I'm always looking for, where's he going before and after care. Like this summer, he went to a camp one of the community centers had. Affordability is always, I think, on anybody's mind, right? So for me, I just had to look where location wise, right? Can I afford it? Where's the location at? Does it make sense for my commute? Right? What are all those, and it comes to play? And then, okay, I get there. Do they have availability? What are they involved with? Does it match up with kind of how you parent your child? And then just kind of how they deal with payments, right? So, went to one facility and they're like, hey, we do, bi-weekly or we do bi-monthly. That's how we do. I also went to a facilities like you have to pay everything up front, and it's like, oof. So that's just kind of depends on how, right? And you can't really knock a place on how they do that. I understand they definitely have to make a living themselves, so you just kind of have to find that works for you, right? So, I'm blessed too as well. It takes a village to raise a child, and so having good support from all around, having good friends and family that support, right? Everyone's able to kind of help out where they can, especially when it comes to the summer when, he's not in school and, we continue to work. So what do we do there? And then when he's in school, and then what do you do to get your child there so you can get to work on time? So I would agree. Affordability is definitely a big thing, because even if you're going to school, then you got to afford before and after care, what those look like. Again, what's the commute like? Is this in the area? How do I get there? Can I get to work on time? Because I may be able to afford it and it may be a great place, but it could be 45 minutes away. And then I'm like, well, I can't go there because, one, they don't support public transportation, or two, I just can't get there with the traffic, with the tunnels and the bridges. So it's definitely a balancing act. And it's something I think on every parent's mind, whether, you have one kid or multiple kids, it can be very difficult.
Greg, you mean you a man and that's your problem too? You got to deal with that as a man?
Absolutely. I think anybody in this situation having a child, we all look and see like, hey, another thing too I see is, you find yourself, can you ask for that aid? Can you receive that, right? Do you qualify for it? And a lot of times, just depending on, I've talked to a few people, there's definitely some who do, but then there's those people that are right above the line, right? And you kind of don't get qualified for it because they deem you make too much. And then, okay, well, but you're still having to afford all the things elsewise, so it's that I run into that sometimes where it's like, okay, can I do that? But then, okay, hey, you make too much. And then you're like, okay, but still, I have to pay all these other things. And it's definitely a balancing act. And I think every parent's going going through that these days.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this comment and then I'll toss it over. And then we've got Delegate Sewell coming in here for like the so what, now what. I can't wait for it. So one person on my AA, hey girl, said affordability is also on the backs of the people. The increase in threats, the lawsuits aimed at providers, the pettiness, the limited options and choice, it sort of inhibits creativity. And Life Coach Queen 2022 said it'd be great to have a grant written for 24-hour daycare to provide low-income families so that they don't have to worry about childcare. And then I'm gonna shut up. Go ahead. For whoever's about to talk.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Greg, I don't know if you get military subsidy. They've just changed the name, and it used to be called NACRA. I can't remember what it's called now, but there's a military childcare subsidy that you can get. But the problem is in our region that there's not that many programs that accept it. And so we are actually going to be hiring somebody here pretty soon, a childcare capacity coordinator, to help talk about military subsidy and help centers to know, here's how you can apply to accept it. And here's how you can help families in your community, especially military. But there's other subsidies and different things too. But a lot of times it's just really hard to connect all of the dots. And so we're getting ready to hire another person to help do that soon. So hopefully that might make it a little easier for some military folks for affordability.
Also, always asking about scholarships. The last school I came from offered scholarships to families who couldn't afford it. And it wasn't necessarily just if your salary is this threshold, that means you automatically qualify. Not really the case. There was a dedicated person who actually reviewed each application because everyone's situation is different. So like a single parent, maybe they're making a little bit more, but look at all the things they have to balance. Like you said, Greg, the balancing act. So I usually always tell families, see if you have a scholarship program. Sometimes that's an easy way just to cap that affordability piece.
Yes, and just to kind of comment more on that, we ourselves offer financial aid. So we assess every single person. Like, we don't give pricing over the phone for that reason. You have to come in, you have to talk to us. We need to see your needs. And we have different packages available where we can accommodate different families because we are a multicultural school. So we do understand that, there's different priorities in different families, and they might not be able to cover everything. So we do have like a small little verification process that we do. And from there, I work closely, with my accountant to see how much we can actually give in credit monthly towards that child's education. That's something on the business side that we do, that we like to do to give back and try to make it affordable without us losing for the program. But I know not a lot of other schools might have that set in place, but that's very true. Always ask, because even small business owners like us, we do have something in place for that.
Yeah, this is the thing. If we can just, and I'm going to shout out what Rena Be Good 60 said. It's like, we really need this. We really need this. We really need this conversation to not stop. But it is at some point going to have to stop. But I want to bring in my colleague and Delegate Brianna Sewell. Can I bring you in? Hey, girl.
Hello, how are you?
I would actually shout her out. Thank you for coming in on your vacation to come and just exercise the privilege that we get to do as serve as legislators, and the lens of we talked about so much: affordability, accessibility, availability, and didn't even get to really talk on. I think Greg did a little touching on the quality. Is this the right fit for me and my family? And there's so much, but you've been in this sphere working for a bit now. So it's where we go, where, I guess the song is, where do we go? Where are you going from here as a lead on this?
Well, first off, thank you so much for letting me join you all on this afternoon's conversation. And it is truly such a pleasure. This conversation could not be more timely because we've been able to make such advances in childcare as a result of COVID pandemic funding. And now that funding is coming to an end, and shortly we have exhausted many of those accounts, it's now upon our states to determine like what next, right? So when we had those funding opportunities at the state level, like we were able to lower the costs for children to be able to attend childcare opportunities. We created 300,000 new childcare slots. We increased compensation for childcare workers all across our nation. But now what? So I'm very fortunate to be able to be part of a group of state legislators from across our nation who have come together and are trying to figure out exactly what that so what now what is. And there are 4 areas that we have primarily focused on. 1, making childcare more equitable and affordable. 2, renewing state funding streams of childcare and making sure that we're truly reviewing them in the process. Expanding childcare availability. And lastly, we have childcare and early learning workforce. So when it comes to childcare and making sure it's equitable and affordable, I had the chance to comment on the tail end of the previous conversation and saw many of the comments in the chat where individuals were sharing like resources that they were able to tap into and great programs that they were able to take advantage of. But some of the issue areas that we have focused on in Virginia are childcare tax credits and doing this in addition to the federal conversation. So making additional tax credits available. Another idea is capping childcare costs, just 7% of a family's income. Expanding Head Start opportunities. As we all know, those thoughts are very coveted and all too often run out before so many members of our community are able to take advantage. When it comes to reviewing state funding streams of childcare, we have the ability for conversations around non-traditional program opportunities. I think I came in and heard an individual reference like 24-hour services, which is so true. Our first responders and so many individuals work in career fields that operate outside of the 9 to 5 hours. And especially as we allow for more remote work and non-traditional work schedules, we had to be mindful of the need for childcare availability. And that's a great opportunity that expands all across the Commonwealth. When we discuss expanding childcare availability, we recognize that there's insufficient seats and location may not be the most desirable and along our respective work routes and travel routes to our offices. And that's what actually increases the cost of education and childcare affordability. So many individuals find themselves in a position where they are being asked to pay for the first 2 years of childcare for their child, just as much as so many of our families pay for in-state tuition at one of our amazing universities, and that's completely unacceptable. So one way in which we can help lower that cost and increase availability is provide incentives for taking advantage of existing buildings, having employers actually provide on-site childcare opportunities, providing free licensure applications assistance, as we know that licensing is a big hindrance. And as I noted, someone in the chat noted that for them, the licensure oftentimes adds to the expense. And it shouldn't be a barrier for entry for so many of our families to know that the facility in which they're placing their child is accredited. And we have the ability to ease that burden. We can also cross-honor our military families and make sure that we acknowledge that the military has higher child care licensing standards than we do here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We actually passed legislation around this just this past year. Delegate Glass served as a chief co-patron on that piece of legislation because she recognized that this was an issue for not only military readiness, but also supporting our family members and opening up childcare slots for children all across the Commonwealth. And supporting those in-home care programs, recognizing that we have the opportunity to work with our local governments to make sure that they understand the importance of effective zoning to make sure these opportunities are available. And then the last 3 that I'll focus on are actually to ensure that we have childcare providers. Across our nation, the average pay in 2022 for a childcare worker was $13.71 per hour. That's not a living wage for so many of our hardworking families. And we need to make sure that we're providing different compensation scales. We've looked at having conversations around education and accreditations for various credentials and making sure that we are honoring their work. Also, we have had conversations about recruitment. So those grow your own programs in our respective backyards and apprenticeship programs. And lastly, making sure that we're providing benefits such as healthcare, a retirement plan, or even if they choose to, go back for their own educational opportunities, make sure that's available. And lastly, realizing that they have their own families, providing childcare stipends whenever possible. So those are a few of the issues, areas that we're working on. And of course, legislation is only fine-tuned when we hear directly from members of the public and those who are being impacted. So Delegate Glass, as always, kudos to you for not only listening to your districts, but providing this platform for individuals to share their respective experience, whether they are a child care provider, a policy expert in this arena, or just quite frankly, an impacted family member. So as always, I'm always happy to show up for Delegate Glass, but especially when she is being of service to the Commonwealth and being forward thinking and a visionary.
I said, and so you lucky I was on mute because I would have cut you off. Okay. I said, you better stop. We're not here to nobody harm because this is the work. Something I know we are at time, but something that like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I'm like, Jade, I'm kind of looking at you because like you have power in this space. Look, let me not like direct this on you, but I feel like there's some power, and Ebony and Sharon and Greg too. It's like one thing that I believe it was the city of Boston did is they like commissioned a childcare census. And I'm just like wondering if like the powers of us could do a census to really understand the childcare issue from a place of like actively pursuing comment and like, because sometimes I think people don't believe us. they read it, but they like don't actually believe it until they can like say 75% of your district can't find childcare within that respective district. You know what I mean?
Well, the good news is that we are just getting some data, a data dashboard with some local, because I was getting ready to hire a consultant to pull the data, and but through Virginia Early Childhood Foundation, we are working on getting some of that data. So it'll be great to be able to really boil it down, and hopefully, I don't know if we'll be able to boil it down by district, but certainly by city. And, the needs really vary across cities and communities. But yeah, I mean, there's so much that needs to happen on the ground. There's, policy and a lot of some things that can happen legislatively. But really just, bringing everybody around it to realize that that childcare is a big issue. And just a shout out because the childcare and the great work that you all did in Richmond was, I think, the only real bipartisan thing that happened, that everybody came around childcare, which has not been, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm pretty old, and it has not always been that way where, folks in Richmond understand the value and how it's impacting our businesses, our families. It's not just, taking care of the cute little kids, but it's like, it's an economic issue.
Yeah, for sure. So let's give last words. All right. Before we go, if there is a thing that you feel like you need to say, and Ebony, whatever you say, I want Miss Sandra to say it in Spanish. Can you do that? You got to do you got to say what she say in Spanish. So last words, you ready? Last words. Jay, what's the last word? You on mute, Jay.
I sure am. Last word for me is workforce development. We needed to get more employers in on this conversation. So there are some employers in Virginia that are offering childcare options as a part of the employee plan in some type of way. Ask around. If you are talking to employers, ask them if they have childcare options. If they don't, ask them what they would need to make that happen so that we can go ahead and get a solution.
Sharon, last word.
On Jay's point, creating a culture that advocates for early childhood. You don't have to be an early childhood caregiver, parent, whatever. Anyone can advocate for early childhood, and it's actually better if our bigger systems, our bigger communities, our bigger cities, and the Commonwealth all thinks about being an advocate. I think all of us here on this call have a sweet spot for early childhood, but we need the male person to be the same way. We need our our waiter at the store. I mean, literally everyone needs to think about being an advocate and realizing that impact. I think Minus 9 to 5 is already on that track with, I was going to say EVMS, but anyway.
Virginia Health Sciences at ODU.
Thank you. Thank you. So anyways, that's it. Be an advocate.
That's right. Greg, last word. You on mute. Hold on. I'm going to try and take you off. There you go.
There it goes. There was no button. I apologize.
No,
no, I just want to say thank you for having me on. It was definitely good to hear everyone's viewpoint on that. I think just being that parent and hearing everyone's thoughts on that was absolutely wonderful. I think a lot of people in this area in the Hampton Roads definitely are always dealing with childcare issues, and it's wonderful to hear that we're working toward a better goal and to give people that accessibility and affordability. So that's all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being an expert. Miss Jane, last word.
Yeah, I think it's really that this is not, I say this very frequently, that if childcare was an easy problem to solve, we would have solved it by now. So it's not an easy problem to solve. There's different needs for different families. There's different needs in different regions. What we need in Western Tidewater is very different from the challenges that are in downtown Norfolk and Portsmouth and, on the Eastern Shore. Military. So, basically we all have to work together, and it's going to take the building of a system, not just, one type of solution. And it's not something that one group can solve by themselves. It's going to take all of us coming together. So thanks for the great conversation.
All right. Thank you for being here and for the work you're doing on Minus 9 to 5. All right, Ebony and Miss Sandra, what we got?
All right. So I'll go first and then she can translate. So I speak Spanish too, but of course I want her to say something while she's on here too. But we have been owning and operating our childcare facility for 6 years now. We're very involved in the community, and we want to partner with everyone that's at this table on this platform, and also the people we've been partnering with, because it's important for us to serve you guys, And so with that being said, we are opening up another facility so we can serve more of you, create more jobs, and involve ourselves in more of those programs so that we can offer more financial aid, more scholarships, and just better quality care for this multicultural community. So yes, I know that's a lot. Go ahead, Mo.
Hola a todos los que hablan español. Aquí estamos Sandra y Ebony. Nos encontramos en Virginia Beach. Estamos en el proceso de abrir otra escuela. Somos una escuela privada, una academia privada completamente. Hablamos español todo el día. Graduamos los niños ya con otro segundo idioma. Muy importante. Así que cuando visiten nuestros países están hablando otro idioma. Tenemos mucha colaboración con la comunidad hispana. La comunidad hispana colaboramos en diferentes agencias, con diferentes tipos de agencias en el gobierno, de educación, y estamos aquí a la orden en Virginia Beach, y pueden contactarnos a través de nuestro website o llamándonos en el teléfono, y podríamos darle más información y podríamos colaborar en diferentes aspectos. Gracias.
See, Mama took it a step further and was like, let me tell you where we can find you, okay? You can find it. You was missing that. I've been getting a lot of asking how people can connect with you. Also, if you can drop it in the chat. I mean, I know Greg's like, don't connect with my kids. I got a life. But definitely Jane and Ebony and Sandra and Sharon, if you want to do the connection. Jay, if you can drop our stuff in the chat while Delegate Brianna Sewell gets her last word in.
It's simply that your stories and your lived experiences are enough. That is the best way in which we can provide solutions to the challenges that our families are facing every day. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. Delegate Glass, I look forward to working with you on legislation this fall and into the upcoming legislative session.
There we go. Hey, teamwork is the dream work. That was the last thing I saw in here on the chat. Someone says, problem solving is a challenge. Teamwork makes the dream work. Let's get it. Nurturing women-owned businesses, nurturing and bringing women together. But we can't forget that we got to make this a everybody issue. I want to thank all of you for who hung it in there for us for this hour of just connecting and hearing you out. Thank you for being active in the chat. Know that the conversation doesn't stop or start here. That I encourage you to reach out to your local representative, your neighbor, your facilities in your area, and see how we can do and be better, because there is never a wrong time to show up for the kids, right? Because that's what we're doing. They are our neighbors too. I want y'all to be a part. Thank you all again. And we will catch you. Actually, I'll catch y'all on Thursday for the morning dew. So I'll see you in 2 days if you're getting up at 7 a.m. with me. All right.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Bye, everybody.